Morning. Since I made a previous video about Twitter, it's the next day. I'm a little behind on uploading videos and doing stuff like that. Prime example of somebody who's on Twitter who really probably needs a break from Twitter is this guy here. Um, I ran into him on Twitter once. Look at that, 173.9 thousand tweets. That's crazy. That's unreal. But the whole reason I ran into this guy was there was a very interesting Twitter uh, thread that was started by a young person who was trying to get published for the very first time. And it kind of took off. And the whole reason that I saw this was about 5 or 6 authors that I follow on Twitter to know when their books are being released and whatnot, all chimed in on this thread. And it was just the young person was like, hey, I'm trying to get published for the first time. Are there any pitfalls for anyone who's ever been published, that you wish you knew when you were trying to get published the first time? And it was like a who's who of not only authors, but literary agents, lawyers, people that work at publishing houses, editors and stuff. It was very, very fascinating because I've always been an avid reader my entire life. And I think over the course of, well, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, I was making my way through this thread because there was just so much content to read. It was probably the last time ever that I was on Twitter where I was like, wow, this website could be really, really cool. And inexplicably, I got down to like towards the end, and there was a tweet from this guy to this young person, which was along the lines of, it's very important that you have a strong social media presence. So it's really important that like you maintain an active Twitter. And it was so jarring to me because it was completely opposite, or not really opposite, but like it didn't make any sense to me. And I just simply replied back, really? You gotta worry about a Twitter account? Like, I would imagine that out of the top 100 things this person should worry about, Twitter is easily in the top 5,000 things to worry about towards the bottom. And the guy immediately replied back something along the lines of, since I'm a published author and I've got over like 40,000 followers, maybe you should stay in your lane or something like that. And he added child at the end. Called me a child. I was like, so I jokingly replied back something like, oh, I see you subscribe to the Thomas Pynchon School of Self-Promotion. What's this child thing? Now, the Thomas Pynchon thing is a reference to a pretty famous author who is notorious for the fact that you can't get a picture of him. He's never appeared in a picture. I think the only picture that people think is of him is from when he was in high school. And he's written some really famous books. His one book, Gravity's Rainbow, I read once a year. It's my favorite book ever written. I will come out and say this right now. If anyone's ever read Thomas Pynchon and doesn't like him, I totally understand. He's a bit of acquired taste. He's a weird writer. The fact that I'm an engineer with probably moderate to severe OCD slash, uh, I guess, autism, he's right up my alley. But he is a rather famous author. He's actually appeared on The Simpsons, but the joke being that he had a paper bag over his head and he was asking people to take a picture with him. A little blurb on The Simpsons, but it was just weird to me because like this guy, it was a reference that I was sure that this guy was going to get because Thomas Pynchon's writings kind of lean towards science fiction. And he fired back something along the lines of, be gone, mentally ill stalker child. And so at that point, I was just like, who the hell is this guy? And I went to click on his account, and of course I was blocked. I'm looking at this in incognito mode, so that's why. And I didn't really think anything of this until like a week later. I had like one or two accounts that kept tweeting at me that he had tweet quoted me and was throwing insults at me from behind a block. And I think that was to try to get his followers to basically flip out at me. And I've actually had people do this to me before. There is a rather prominent individual who has a daytime talk show that I pissed her off. I don't even remember what I said to her. And she tweet quoted me, and for like 3 weeks, my inbox was just filled with angry messages and tweets and mentions from bored housewives, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever. It was probably the most activity I ever got on a tweet. This was completely different. Like nobody was really taking his bait. So that kind of leads me to believe that most of his followers are probably bots or they don't really interact with him. But I really didn't think anything of this guy until eventually, let me flip back. He started getting in the news for the fact that the sci-fi writer for years, and he can't stop him. And I guess the gist of this was, per this, he said years ago on Twitter that he didn't find Norm Macdonald funny, and so these fans online just started harassing this guy nonstop. And I've mentioned before how I have a really low opinion of the media. I think the media always just has a narrative. And I'm not even talking about politics, left or right. I just think the media tends to do stories as quick and as easy. They make a good guy versus a bad guy kind of thing. And I started looking into this guy. And it's pretty funny because I'm fairly certain that the reason why these folks are messing with this guy is not so much the Norm Macdonald thing. It is because he constantly responds to trolling. Like I think he's incapable of stopping. I'm fairly certain he has some kind of humiliation fetish. What is so fascinating to me, however, is apparently this guy has been swatted, and I'm coming right out. I don't think I should have to say this. I think this is common sense. Swatting is bad. Swatting has gotten kids killed, dogs killed, adults killed. Um, it's bullshit. Please don't do it. I firmly believe that if you swat somebody, that should result in at least a 5-year minimum sentence, and I mean no early out for something like that. But what's fascinating to me is supposedly, well, not supposedly, it's on video and stuff, the cops have shown up to his house like a dozen times. And that's amazing to me. Like, that doesn't make any sense because even if he wasn't called ahead and say, "Hey, I've pissed people off online," if you get a swatting call, it's probably not a real case or a real incident. You got to check on me, of course, but for the love of God, don't come in guns a-blazing. And the cops will cooperate with this because they don't want to waste the resources and their time. I mean, cops do not want to do a room clear kind of thing. It's very, very stressful and so on. Inexplicably, they are still coming into this guy's house guns a-blazing every time. So it's like, there's something else happening here that just doesn't make any sense. Like, is he like such a dickhead to the cops every time? They're just like, yeah, we're responding to the next call the same way. We're just going to keep doing this. It's so bizarre to me. And the more I started reading up on this, it's amazing because apparently he sued this forum to try to get the identity of users. This O&A forum, which is apparently Opie and Anthony thing. I've never understood why people really cared about Howard Stern or Opie and Anthony. That stuff was never my cup of tea. But he tried to sue them, and he lost his lawsuit. So now he owes the owner and operator of that website like 40-50 grand, which he's refusing to pay. His Twitter is filled with like stuff that is constantly engaging the trolls, constantly responding to the trolls. Apparently he gets phone calls all the time and messages. He responds to every single one of these messages as opposed to, I don't know, getting a new number. Like just get a new number or block the numbers. Eventually the trolls will run out of numbers kind of thing. Like it almost makes me wonder where like when he gets a spam phone call from like a telemarketer, does he sit there and argue with the telemarketer or do you just hang up and block the number? That's what I do. Um, yeah, he was supposed to pay like this amount of money, and I think this is now ballooned up to like almost twice that because he just will not pay. Um, apparently, some guy showed up to his favorite bar and he talked shit about the guy, and then Patrick wasn't there, so then Patrick tried to like file suit against the guy, and like the judge was just like, okay, in messages with this guy, you said you were going to meet him and you guys were going to fight. Yes, he shouldn't have showed up, and yes, he was drunk, but you were the one that initiated this by saying, "Yeah, show up, I'll kick your ass," kind of thing. Like and the guy just threw it out. Like this is stupid. Both of you go away. Don't ever, that's kind of like the way he kind of loses these things. Like he'll complain that people take pictures of him from afar when he goes to these conventions and stuff, and it's like, well, you're in public. You don't have a right to privacy in public, kind of thing. Oh, it's just so bizarre to me because it's like I don't understand how the cops keep showing up to his house. There's something that we're missing here. Similarly, because I've read up on him, apparently at one point he was prior married, and his wife left him and took the daughter. And this dude was able to sign away his parental rights, which is something that's incredibly difficult to do. So, like, I volunteer with veterans, and this will be something that I have to talk to some of the veterans that are really screwing up their lives about how, like, hey, you're really behind in child support payments. We need you to get a job. You're looking at like being found in contempt of court and stuff. And the guys will say to me, well, I just want to sign away my parental rights. And it's like, no, the state won't allow you to do that. The reason the state won't allow you to do that typically, and this will include if there's accusations of violence made against that person or like they've been convicted of like abuse, the state still will not terminate parental rights generally. Because if something happens to the other parent, that child could easily become a ward of the state. And the state doesn't want like a single mom or a single dad to end up on benefits when the other parent should be paying for that child. Somehow this dude was able to just sign away his parental rights. Now my understanding was his ex-wife was married to a man, and so he basically adopted the daughter. And very, very sadly, I believe he just recently died. And I feel very, very bad for Patrick's ex-wife and for her kids and so on. And it's got to be heartbreaking for that little girl to lose her dad. And when I say her dad, I'm not talking about Patrick. I'm talking about the man that actually took care of her and raised her and stuff. But again, there's some steps in there that are missing. Like, I cannot believe that the state of Wisconsin, I think it's Wisconsin, would have been kosher with this guy getting out of any kind of financial responsibility for his kid. Because I've seen this drag out. I've seen this drag out where I had a veteran who was a train wreck. He was just a miserable train wreck. The wife had the two kids. She had remarried, and she was trying to get our local state to just take away all parental rights from him, all responsibilities. And the judges kept ruling no, no, no. And they were trying to get money out of this veteran who was really not in a good way. He was never going to be able to start paying for stuff. But the reason that the wife, ex-wife, and the guy that adopted the guy's two kids wanted this to just be done with because they just wanted him out of their life. And as long as this guy is paying, he could honestly fuck with them. And this is really unfortunate because, this was really disruptive to the kids. This was really disruptive to the married couple. And frankly, it was something for this veteran to obsess on because he had that mentality that anything that he had done wrong was other people's faults. So I've seen it where, like in all my years of volunteering over the last 10 years, I've never once had it where a veteran was able to sign away his parental rights. This guy, he makes it sound like he just went to he just yada 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 throws it, and I'm like, how does that work? Um, he'll post up videos of the swattings occurring. Every single time this happens, he goes on the Twitter and he talks about how terrified he was. It's like, why are you doing this? You're feeding the trolls. You're encouraging this to continue to keep happening. And again, 11 incidences, I guess. And it's like, why are the cops still responding? They shouldn't keep responding. There's got to be something more going on where, like, I don't know, maybe maybe he's being really, really nasty to the police or whatever. It's just the dude's Twitter is just so funny, unintentionally funny, but it's just like stalkers and trolls and bot farms are already salivating the chance to pay to impersonate real people under the new verified proposal. This is a prime example of a guy who owes a lot of money to people, and I guarantee you, if they decided that it was going to be $5,000 a month for a blue check mark, this guy would pay for it. This guy would pay for it. And again, there are plenty of famous people that don't have Twitter accounts, or if they have Twitter accounts, it's their PR people that handle it. Um, it's just like, I don't know how he responds to this. Oh, he's now a business leader. He's It'd be, if Tesla removed Elon Musk from their board of directors, that would cause the price to just drop to nothing. Because right now, the only thing that that company is very good at is Elon Musk giving it press. Like, if they were just treated like GMC or Ford or Toyota or whatever, they would be screwed. People are like, ugh, I'm leaving Twitter, but I saw a viral thread where someone argued it's classist to know how to boil an egg. That's pretty funny, actually. Oh, these are not responding to. Yeah, there's no way Dan Rather responded to this dude. They're just related tweets. I'm not ceding ground to Musk because I think we're going to outlast him. However, I'm going to make a concerted effort to get back to long form essay writing. Yeah, for a writer, I would imagine that not putting everything in the tweet format would be conducive to your art, but that's just me. It's just I saw that I did see online that apparently some trolls, because this guy always acts like he's a brilliant mind. Um, Apparently the trolls somehow got a hold of his high school transcripts, which I don't even know how that's possible. Uh, Apparently he barely flunked. He barely passed like high school. Like, and I'm not talking like me. I was a terrible student in high school. I went to a terrible school, a lot of crime, really underfunded school system. I coasted with a C, and then as soon as I could, I got in the military to get out away from poverty and stuff. Whereas this guy, like, his grades are, I think he failed gym. And probably what saved him was that his mother was a school teacher or something in the district or at that school. If you're wondering, have I ever read any of his books? The answer is no. I did go to a used bookstore in town and I saw, I think it was the Starship Repo. They had a copy of that. And I stood there for about 30 minutes and I read like the first chapter. And it was pretty much everything that I hate about modern science fiction. I thought this was, am I missing something here? Your newsletter. How do I get to your newsletter? I don't want to look at your books. Your links don't work, Patrick. If you're trying to reach me on Twitter, my only handle is @StealthyGeek. All other accounts are imposters and should be treated. Oh my god. Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. He actually puts that on his. Also, who writes their email like this? Just have a link. Have a link. He makes his websites the same way he makes his books. They're oh, the I'm sorry. This is the funniest thing I've ever. Yeah, this was the thing that I loved. His main character's name is first name, last name. So, oh, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. I remember reading that as a kid, and I didn't really like it all that much. I didn't think it was because I remember a friend of mine telling me, "Oh, it's an amazing book, amazing book, amazing book." And I know it's super popular. They made it into movies, they made it into radio shows, and all. I read through the Hitchhiker's Guide, and I didn't really like it too much because, like, I was going through a phase where I was reading PK Dick like nonstop. I was reading everything I could of PK Dick, and that's a lot grittier, you know. Um, but one of the things that I really don't like when something gets super popular is that everyone starts to parrot it. And that's exactly what this book felt like. This felt like a dude who probably watched the Hitchhiker's Guide movie, didn't even read the book, but read the movie, and he's trying to do his own version of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is, and one of the first things that took me out of the first chapter was the fact that he named his character, main character, first name, last name, which I get what he's trying to do, but it's just so insultingly stupid. Like, I love this picture. He uses it for everything. He uses that picture for everything. And it's such a bad picture. Like, honest to God, when he first responded to me, I thought that this was a troll account. I legit thought it was a troll account because of the picture, the at thing, like stealthy geek, like what is that supposed to mean? Also, I found out that apparently he does stand up. When I was looking him up just relatively recently, and I've watched some of his stand up, and it was like watching Jeb Bush, like please clap, kind of stand up, like very cringeworthy, but not intentionally cringeworthy, or not. It's cringe comedy, but not intentional cringe comedy. Like it's just it's a really really interesting thing to go down. Abortion, a key anti. You're at a fertility clinic. Oh my God, he's a moron. He legitimately can't. Oh, God, this is such a like a bullshit argument to even try to make. The difference between a 5-year-old child burning in a fire versus a canister of human embryos, frozen human embryos. Like it's the same. Like this is like arguing that because somebody accidentally steers into oncoming traffic to not hit a dog, and they end up killing somebody in the opposing direction, that clearly that person values the dog's life above human life. Like it's so stupid. Yeah, right here. Reality is if somebody walked in a room, saw a 5-year-old, and no other people would grab the child and get the fuck out. Yeah, nobody would notice the embryos. Like, this is supposed to be a shattering argument. Oh, God. There's just so much weird stuff like this on him. Like, and there are people that have done like YouTube things where they've kind of broken down stuff. So, like, if you Google this guy on YouTube, there's some very interesting videos that'll come out. It's funny because I always wonder how somebody like him ends up the way he does versus somebody like me, and I always wonder like how did our paths diverge? And the nearest I could tell is apparently if you grow up with like good loving parents in like an upper middle class household, you end up like this guy. Or if you end up like me, growing up in poverty with like an abusive family, somehow you end up normal. Like I don't know. It's just like uh, this yeah. Like oh my God, he spent $100,000 on that. I don't know if that's true. If he spent $100,000 on that lawsuit against the forum, and then he still has to pay on top of that. Um, Again, though, I don't understand people that get swatted and then they immediately go online to tell the entire world that, hey, you swatted me and it really, really affected me. So 6 times, 6 times. Okay, maybe it wasn't over 10 times, 6 times. But it's like you don't want to advertise this. You really, really don't want to advertise that you. Oh my God, he made the Daily Mail over in the UK. God, he's fat. He's very fat. Like I shouldn't make a comment about someone being fat, but I did see in the course of looking stuff up that apparently he bought like a home gym, and he makes a big deal about the fact that like he's a marathon runner, and it's like what? Like yeah, no. Like he gives advice on how he's okay. That's the kind of stuff that'll make the cops come every single time. Like if you this right here is baiting. This is baiting the police to keep fucking with you. Like and he's doing this on like social media. Yeah. Patrick, yeah, that's Patrick Thomas got a 1.78 in high school. All right, where are the comments? God, I hate these British websites. Look at all this freaking advertisement crap. He swatted himself. See, this guy can say Norm Macdonald's not funny, and I guarantee you he wasn't swatted. Like, let's see, best rated. They need help not swatting. You see, like this is always my thing. When you read one of these stories where it appears like this poor innocent person is so cruelly one-sided, and like the stories are almost never really like that. Reality is never like that. It's usually give and take kind of thing. Again, this is what doesn't make any sense to me. Like after the second time, the cops would just naturally stop showing up, and I gotta believe that he's intentionally setting this up to like antagonize the police or he's like, this doesn't make any sense because there are streamers, like streamers now know, hey, make sure you got a good relationship with the police so you know that they don't show up with guns blazing during the stream kind of thing. It's like, this is like modern common sense now. It's I just don't get this guy at all. I really don't. I know you're not really supposed to blame the victim here, but there's just more going on here than meets the eyes. But anyway, I gotta get ready for my shift. I'm trying to get some very large water-cooled medium voltage drives up and running, and I've got to the room an hour early to kind of prep, and it only took me about a half an hour to prep. But now I'm almost out of time. The last thing I need is a bunch of guys speaking Spanish coming in here totally confused while I'm talking English to my computer. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you're having a pleasant day. I hope you all had a pleasant Halloween. I got to see pictures of my son and my wife in costume when they went trick-or-treating. I kind of wish I was there, but things you have to do for your family. So everybody take care. Ciao.